Welcome back to the Battle Camp. So this is just a quick kind of recap and just some of my thoughts about UFC 234. Took place in Australia. Where was it in Australia? Melbourne, Australia. So we all know the kind of main event was meant to be Robert Whittaker to defend his middleweight title against Kelvin Gastelum, and the co-main event was Israel Adesanya against Anderson Silva. If you're watching this, I'm assuming you know that poor Robert Whittaker, he felt sick the night before fight day and ended up being a hernia issue which he had to have operated on. So coming out of news coming out kind of since the fight night, Dana White basically said he was suffering from pains and stuff before, like during fight camp, and he just kind of pushed through, not knowing it was a hernia issue. So hopefully he that operation went well and he recovers quickly. But yeah, I just wanted to share some thoughts about the main event, Adesanya vs Anderson Silva, and the current state of the middleweight division. So if we just quickly look at the fight, I'm not going to break it down round by round, but for me it was an entertaining fight, man. It was basically what I thought was going to happen going in. Now, there was talk before the fight of Anderson Silva potentially pulling guard and taking this to the ground, but I didn't buy into that just because apparently he wore a jiu-jitsu gi during one of the open workouts or something like that, trying to make it look like, oh, I'm really working on my jiu-jitsu game. I think he just wore it because it fucking looks cool, to be totally honest with you. And Fight Night just played out how we assumed it was going to. Two very, very, very high level strikers, kickboxers, um, going at it. And there was a lot of showboating going on. The only kind of real moments of note were in the first round, Adesanya managed to, I can't remember what punch it was. And also, for some reason, my my recording on my Skybox is deleted. I don't know who the fuck's done that because it weren't me, and I doubt it was my brother. So it's just kind of deleted itself. So I was gonna, because I watched it live last night and I was half asleep watching it, but I wanted to watch it again today, this morning, before making this video. But oh well, you're just gonna get my what I remember in my half asleep state. Um, but yeah, what was I even saying? Yeah, so Adesanya dropped Anderson Silva in the first round, but it was like a flash knockdown. He kind of wobbled his legs and Anderson hit the canvas, but he got back up and he wasn't like, his legs weren't gone from underneath him. He was able to continue fighting and whatnot. And I think it was pretty late in the first round, if my memory is correct. The only moments of note for Anderson Silva throughout the fight was he kind of done what he does. He there was times when he posted himself up against the fence and invited Israel in. I'm just gonna call him Stylebender because Adesanya and Anderson Silva kind of sound similar, and I get muddled up because I'm not very bright. But Silva kind of stood up, posted himself up against the fence, and called Stylebender in and invited him to kind of come in and face him at that range. And um, Stylebender didn't really oblige, and he kind of stood on the outside and kind of threw these kind of punches, but not really with any spite, and kind of leg kicks and stuff like that. And until he kind of just wanted to go back to the center of the cage. So when um when Stylebender in the build up to the fight was saying how he's player one and he knows what Silver's gonna do and he's ready for all of the tricks that Silver has, he wasn't lying, because he didn't get trapped into any of these little ploys that Anderson Silva's used so successfully over the years. Um, the only real success that Silva had was when he kind of exploded and threw flurry of punches and stuff, but that wasn't real kind of major success. He'd catch Starbender with one or two punches, but not enough to do any damage, or not enough to unbalance Starbender to put him in a dangerous spot or anything like that. Starbender kind of controlled this fight, and he won with a unanimous decision. There was arguments about maybe the second round that you could score it either way, but the first and third were clear that Starbender had won that fight, and that was basically how people thought it was going to go. There was a lot of talk about, oh, if Stylebender gets a kind of a highlight reel knockout, what that would do for his career and how it would skyrocket him, etc. I personally, because it was a 3 round fight, I couldn't see Stylebender knocking him out, because Stylebender usually kind of, the way he knocks people out with setting up his kind of setting up his strikes in a way that he kind of sets traps along the way, and then bang, there'll come a head kick. So he'll throw low kick, low kick, low kick throughout the round, and then towards the end of a round he'll go with a high kick or something like that. Or but the level of opposition he's able to do that against, in my opinion, Silva's better than that, if that makes sense. So the traps that he would have had to set, I think he would have needed more time, i.e., 5 rounds, and he'd need to be a lot more clever about the way he does it, because Silva's a very, very accomplished kickboxer himself. So I saw it going for a decision victory, and that's the way it played out. Not that I'm a fucking expert, it's just what I thought and how it would happen. Because Silva I mean, he's been hurt in the past and whatnot. And I'm just gonna go and look at his record now, because I know towards the end of his career he got finished by Chris Weidman, but I can't remember. I know he's lost quite a few towards the end of his career, but they've mostly been decisions, and the only knockout was when he was kind of showboating against Chris Weidman when he initially lost his belt, when it was the biggest shock ever. But yeah, like his chin still holds up, because he's still got his reflexes. He still moves with his punches and stuff. He doesn't just take shots square on the jaw. So he's still a very high level fighter. It's just he's not as good as what he used to be back in the day. That's all it is. And Stylebender kind of exposed that, because he was faster and he was able to get off more, and he won that fight fair and square. So that's kind of a look at the fight, and there's nothing kind of surprising about the actual fight. But what I did like about this, or no, actually, what I didn't like was, obviously now, so this fight was meant to be a #1 contender fight, Israel against Anderson, and the winner goes on to face the winner of Robert Whittaker and Kelvin Gastelum. Now, obviously, that fight didn't happen. So now we've basically got the situation where we have a champion, Robert Whittaker, who hopefully will be back in a couple of months. So we're now in February. So let's say he's able to fight in, I don't know, May or something like that. That's not that far away in fight terms. And then we've got two people vying for that position to fight him, Kelvin Gastelum and Stylebender. Now, Kelvin Gastelum, he played a good hand, to be fair, because he kind of understood how the UFC, he knows how the UFC works. It's kind of like the UFC have a real short memory. So Kelvin Gastelum was the #1 contender. Now Israel beating Anderson Silva, and he's kind of getting this kind of fame and notoriety as a marketable person, and he knows how to play the game. Like, he's very good in interviews and things like that. So now he's obviously aware of the fact that the UFC might just say, oh, well, you know what, Israel's the #1 contender now, because he done a good performance against Anderson Silva, and he's had a really good year, to be fair. He's won all of his fights in the UFC. He's won 4 or 5 fights in the last year. So he can stake a claim to being the #1 contender. So Kelvin Gastelum used to keep himself in the limelight and keep his name out there to say, no, hold on, I'm the #1 contender. So what did he do? He went and fucking pinched Henry Cejudo's UFC belt and just carried it around with him, and basically said, I'm the champion now. You know, if you don't show up to work, I'm the champion now. So you gotta fight me to be the champion. Which I thought that was kind of a good way of playing it, to be honest. You've seen bits of personality from Kelvin Gastelum, but nothing like this. He had a purpose, and whether someone's advised him to do this or whether he just thought all of this up himself, fair play to him, man. He's got to do what he's got to do to stay in, to keep his name in that position as the #1 contender. Israel Adesanya, he's obviously saying now he should be the #1 contender. And Robert Whittaker, the poor guy, man, he's had some poor luck with injuries and things like that. I really feel for him, man, because he's a top fighter. Obviously, he's a middleweight champion, but I just feel for him, man. I really feel sorry for him. There's not really much else to talk about on this card because, to be fair, um, the rest of this card. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like obviously there must have been good fights and good performances during the rest of this card, but um, I'm a big MMA fan, and I could probably name about three or four, maybe five of the other fighters in the other fights for the rest of the card. The quality of the undercard below Israel and Anderson Silva, that is like a fight pass kind of quality card. So the UFC really built this on the two fights, which is fair enough because they are two very good fights. But as it so often happens in the UFC, one of the fights fell out, so we were left with a really weak card. Um, and I'm talking name value and kind of notoriety and fights that mean something. So there's two ways of looking at it. One, okay, these are two high level martial artists and they're fighting, and it might just be a good fight from a technical standpoint. But none of these other fights really meant something for the division they were in. So the co-main event, which is Lando Venata vs Marcos Mariano. So Lando Venata won that fight, and I really like watching him fight. He's a really good fighter. But this fight had no consequence to the lightweight division. I don't know where these guys are ranked. No one's close to getting a title shot. None of these guys are kind of this young up and coming guy taking his first big step up, if that makes sense. There was no kind of actual stories in the undercard, and that's what I mean by kind of notable fights. Like there's you can have like needle between two guys, and I'm not saying that the UFC should manufacture this and they can't manufacture it. Excuse me, but it's all down to matchmaking, who you put against who and stuff like that. And yeah, this really wasn't a great card in terms of name value, stories, and fights of consequence, in my opinion. Apart from the Israel Adesanya and Anderson Silva fight, none of the other fights had any consequence to the weight division that these fighters operate in. Which is why there was a lack of interest from my point of view, anyway. And I'm a really big MMA fan, so if I wasn't that interested, I doubt there were many casuals that were. But anyway, in conclusion, I suppose the Starbender and Anderson Silva fight, that was kind of, we got what we thought we were going to get. You know what it was actually like. If you're from the UK, you'll know what I mean by this. But when you see two three-star footballers kind of having a battle, so one guy does keepy uppies and he fucking flicks the ball up and balances it on the back of his neck, and then the other guy does the same and then he balances it on his back of his neck, and then he does a press up, and then they're kind of going at it and competing with each other. It, the Stylebender and Anderson Silva fight reminded me of that a little bit because they were both showboating and they were both doing these little tricks that they're both known for on each other. And yeah, I don't. I hope you understand what I mean, what I'm trying to get at when I say that. But yeah, it was very interesting. It was a good watch. I really enjoyed it anyway. Because I wasn't expecting a lot of action where there's going to be a near finish. I thought if there was going to be a finish, it would be like a single strike, kind of catching someone kind of coming in, kind of like so for example, if Anderson Silva's coming in and you catch him with a head kick, or if Israel Adesanya is trying to throw a body punch and he gets knee to the face or something like that, I thought it'd be a single hit KO, rather than a flurry of punches, because I just felt both of these guys were too high level to get caught in a trap where you kind of get caught in a position where the other guy's able to get off 3, 4, 5 strikes on you, if that makes sense. But anyway, interesting times for the middleweight division. I want to see how this develops with Kelvin Gastelum and Israel. They kind of now seem neck and neck, and it all also depends on on Robert Whittaker's recovery time. Because what would make sense if Robert Whittaker can't come back until, say, I don't know, August. If you schedule a fight in, what are we now, February, April or something like that, April, May, between Kelvin Gastelum and Israel, and then the winner fights Robert Whittaker kind of in August, September, October. I don't know. That's just a thought, I suppose. But Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Comment below. Please share this with your mates, like, and make sure you subscribe. I'll catch you next time.